This week I'll be looking at the palms of Kurt Cobain. Now, even in this pixelated image, I can already tell quite a few things about the shape of the palms and the fingers. The ring finger, or the Apollo finger, is on the spatulate side. It's sort of almost bulbous, and this shows a person who enjoys tangible results from creative efforts. Apollo is the finger of creativity, of talents. Notice also how the Saturn finger, the middle finger, which is the finger of responsibility, planning, the inevitable. It's about how we see ourselves and how we also see society, bureaucracy. It's our sense of doing right and wrong. Notice how it leans in towards Apollo. So it shows that this person's duty, their career, is depending on Apollo, their creative talents. But also Jupiter, or the index finger and the middle finger, they both lean towards Apollo at the tip, at the first phalanx. And when this is seen, this is always a sign of mixed messages when young. The index finger is also on the short side, and I think overall Saturn is quite long, the middle finger is quite long. So both these things combined mean a lacking of self-worth, of self-esteem, self-confidence, but also a feeling with people with a long middle finger are melancholic. They are generally sort of very depressed, or at least they're prone to depression. They enjoy being alone. They need to be alone. They can't be surrounded by society, really. They can't be surrounded by a lot of people. They don't deal well with fame. The thumb is low set. This is always a sign of a bit of a humanitarian, but more than that, a book lover. And the thumb is relatively short. This person is able to action their many ideas. The logic here is probably a little bit stronger than the willpower. This is probably someone who has maybe too many ideas, too many thoughts, and not enough willpower to see them through. Most writers have a low set thumb as well as a forking headline, and we're not going to get into the chirology just yet, that is the lines. First of all, I just wanted to talk about the shape of the hands and the fingers. And now the other thing I wanted to mention here is just how well developed the lunar mount is. That's the heel of the hand here, sometimes referred to as the percussive side or the ulnar side of the hand. And also, just below lunar, we've got Pluto. Pluto is very well developed. Pluto is an extra capacity of this watery side of a person. Water is emotion, imagination, dreams, fantasy. It's our ability to, when we are being creative, to tap into this imaginative reserve. Pluto is this extra capacity of lunar. Pluto is even more mysterious. It's even more unconscious. And it shows how a person is affected by events completely outside of their control. So if we saw a deep line running in, striking at the lifeline at a certain age, then this might indicate an unforeseeable event outside of someone's control that look to connect with and affect and have some sort of contact with a person's life. And Princess Diana had this on her palm. Have a look at her palm reading. I did this a couple of weeks ago. The palm itself is square and long fingers. We have here clearly an air hand with some watery elements to it. At least that's what I'm getting from the shape of the palms and the fingers. This is certainly a very philosophical, almost spiritually kind of analytical person, highly introverted and introspective. The short thumb combined with the long finger combination here, it shows a person who has a very sort of complex nature, because whilst they are constantly thinking and processing slowly the world around them, they are quick to action these many ideas that they have received. They're quick to effectively action and create from the stimuli that they see and experience all around them. And where this would be balanced is if we saw an exact length between the logic and the willpower. So this would create and provide much needed balance within this person. Now, someone with too much logic and not enough willpower is someone who's much more likely to get pushed around, and someone who also has a kind of a leaning in tip of the index finger here. It shows someone who they're not a born leader, they're more of a follower. They don't want to be in the limelight, and so they're much more likely to take advice from people close to them. So let's just hope that people close to them want what's best for them. I mean, on the surface, this is the palm of a sensitive individual, someone who is certainly creative, a poet or a musician, certainly someone who's philosophical and spiritual. The nails here seem to show a very sort of self-critical, again, reduced confidence, strong in creative talents, and very sort of practical creatively. But the idea of himself in society and where he fits in, and himself in general as a person, is very sort of low and reduced. And so a person, this kind of person truly requires someone who is very emotionally aware, intelligent and supportive and understanding as a partner, or even a friend and work colleagues. There needs to be some balance here. Now, a good sense of rhythm is seen by this angle of proficiency or time. A good sense of singing ability seen by the angle of pitch. Now, as you can imagine, it's been very difficult for me to find clear images of Kurt Cobain's palms online. The lifeline cuts quite closely into Venus, giving the sort of ball of the thumb here, giving the impression of quite a small amount of Venus. Venus is this place of family, home, friendships, love, relationships. It's stability, it's happiness, it's warmth, and it's, when we have a reduced kind of size, it shows that this person's, that they have only a few friends really, and they keep them close to home. It shows an unwillingness to step outside and into bold new places, and also the way the headline is joined to the lifeline for quite some time. This again shows shyness and an unwillingness to be in the public eye. It shows a caution and a lack of confidence, and in Indian palmistry this is known as the sign of the tortoise. People with this sign and a long middle finger, which this particular image doesn't show all that well because of the angle, is that these two signs combined show someone who is very likely to read every line of an instruction manual before assembling furniture. Bit of a silly analogy, but it's particularly with these long fingers and the knots in them as well. This is someone who is, you can notice how Apollo is a little bit sort of wasted in at the second phalanx there. This is a bit of a nitpicker. They're highly critical of others in society itself, bureaucracy. Actually, I think they probably feel there is a strong need for laws and regulations and hierarchy of some sense, but this isn't for them. They are more of a follower, but I don't really like to put people into boxes in that way, followers and leaders. This is a very unique individual, as we all are, but this is certainly someone who likes to sit back in a corner and observe life and document. Mercury is so tremendously long, and there's a good thickness to it as well. This is a clear sign of an extra sign of intelligence here. The verbal capacity of communication is strong as well, as the first phalanx of Mercury is long. This shows a strong verbal communicator. Singers always have a long Mercury finger. Opera tenor singers have a long Jupiter finger to boot as well, a long index finger, but Kurt Cobain doesn't. And we can also see a clear gap here between Jupiter and Saturn. Now this is always seen on the palms of people who have their biological father was not present, they were absent. And everything I'm seeing in this person's palms shows clear signs of a lacking of self-confidence, a lacking of self-worth and esteem. And you might be asking yourself, well, how is it possible to get up on stage? Well, in one respect, and I actually know this from personal experience, it's very different. You're not quite yourself. You're hiding behind a character, whether it's the lyrics or a script, there's safety in hiding behind this character, this persona, when you're on stage. There's a kind of healthy form of escapism, I suppose, from who you are. So this is, in a sense, one of the signs of low confidence in itself. And this is why so many A-list Hollywood stars have inferiority complexes, body dysmorphia, other issues relating to how they identify with themselves as well. Because these people get into these career roles as one of the reasons for escaping from themselves in the first place. Obviously not everyone, but this is just an observation. Now, whenever we see a large gap between the little and the ring finger, as well as the index and the middle finger, this is quite often some sort of eating disorder. And this again is another coping mechanism for previous traumas. And this is likely this kind of watery side of Kurt's palm coming through here. He's an air hand with some watery qualities. And in this image, you can clearly see that logic is not as long as willpower. There isn't quite the balance here. And actually, it's not dramatic, but it is another sign of a reduced sort of self-worth. This person lacks the determination, the willpower to stick up for their own ideas, their own thoughts and feelings. Now, one of the signs of suicidal tendencies in palmistry is a headline that dips right down into Luna, that takes a bit of a nosedive. Sometimes you'll see a headline that kind of changes direction quite quickly and reaches down into the heel of the hand, quite low down into the palm. And this again, Luna, this place of imagination, fantasy, unrealistic thoughts. This is why when the headline reaches down into this place, it's a sign of a possible sign of suicidal tendencies in palmistry. And actually, I do not see this in Kurt Cobain's palms. It's very difficult, as I say, because I don't really have the clarity here. So this is the clearest image I have in terms of chirology, and you can clearly see here, this is not a headline that reaches low down into Luna. I would be expecting to see, this is the sort of lower region of Luna here. And I just don't see it. We have a gentle creative curve. And that's not to say that without this sign, we're ruling out suicide. It's not what I would expect to see. Terry Stokes, my mentor, has read the palms of Robin Williams, and he has this as a case study in his book, and that's always in my description. I make no money. I'm not sponsored by plugging anyone's books. It's just a superb book, and in it you can clearly see the headline takes a bit of a plunge into Luna like this. Where is it? It's there, look, right behind me, and I'm going to grab it now and I'll show you. So here is this is the palm of Robin Williams. Now look at the headline. You can quite clearly see it's plunging into the lower depths of this person's palms, of his palms. Now you can see, if you just kind of with your mind's eye there, divide the top and the bottom half of the palm in half, and you'll quite clearly see that headline is dropping down into the lower region of the palm. Now I just want to clarify here, if you have this sign, it doesn't necessarily mean you are going to commit suicide. It doesn't mean that you have suicidal tendencies either necessarily. It just means that you have a tendency to reach into the fantastical and potentially unrealistic thoughts at times, the deep and dark imagination. Someone who's highly in touch with their unconscious thoughts. It's one of the signs of suicidal tendencies in palmistry. Now then, bear in mind what I've just shown you. This is the length of Kurt Cobain's palms, and this is half of that length. Now you can quite clearly see the headline here. It doesn't reach lower than, doesn't reach this lower section of the palm like Robin Williams' headlines does. Whilst Kurt Cobain was depressive, melancholic, there was actually quite a lot of realism in what he was writing about, what he was singing about. He was creative, but also very practical. Practical people always have square palms. It's one of the clear signs of practical nature. It shows logic and rational, lateral thinking, someone who's pragmatic about things. And it's undeniable that this is a square palm. It's very difficult to obtain any palmar information from the lines in the palms, but I can see some strong intuition here, and it does look as though there is some. This is the place of inner Mars here. This is drive, determination, motivation, anger. When we need to fight against someone else, literally, figuratively, or a battle against cancer, or a legal pursuit, or on the literal battlefield, we rely on inner Mars. And we can see here this line that kind of reaches in and touches. I mean, at least that's what I'm getting here. And it touches the lifeline. This shows determination to affect and change this person's life. It's coming from quite low down on inner Mars, which is, this place of battles is close to the place of love. Venus is the goddess of love and battles, and that's why Mars is so close to it. So it shows that this kind of inner conflict comes from close to home. Now, I just wish I could see more in detail, because I really feel like I would be able to see and show a lot more from these palms if I could see more. I can only provide clarity with clarity. But what I will say is this. In palmistry, as a general rule of thumb, in terms of timing events on the lifeline, which is this line here, 25 generally always falls directly beneath the in between the index and the middle finger. This is about the age of 25 here. So look at this determination here. It points to the lifeline, and we can see another line cutting the lifeline. Actually cuts the headline over here as well. I mean, it's so difficult to see. It's so pixelated, isn't it? This isn't exactly an exact science, but it does seem to sort of indicate quite some sort of violent conflict here. And what I would normally interpret a line coming from inside the lifeline with close to Venus, this, or just above inner Mars, the kind of looks to cross over and rise towards the Mercury amount, crossing all of the major palmar lines. I would see this as a potential divorce. And if we see this in the left hand, this shows what's internal. So perhaps this is what was on the cards. I'm sorry, there's just quite a lot of speculation with this one. So that's it, I think, from me for this one, because I can't really say much more from looking at his hands alone. And yes, it does say death there on the wall. So I don't know what your thoughts are. Maybe you picked up on other things in this video watching. Let me know what your thoughts are. This is not really all that impartial in terms of where, the age-old question would be, did he commit suicide or was he murdered? Can I spot this from the palms? No, I can't, because I just don't have the clarity. I mean, I've picked up on one or two things. I don't think he did, but that's not really from what I've seen in his hands. And if you look on unsolvedmysteries.com, you'll see some really kind of fascinating inconsistencies with the investigation around his supposed suicide. I believe Kurt Cobain was burnt out. I believe he didn't want to be in the limelight anymore, and I believe he wanted to divorce his wife, and I also believe he was worth a lot more dead. So there's a clear motive there. Also, I will say this, his credit cards there were 2 attempts of use after his time of death, and they were put back in his wallet, which were found at the scene of his supposed suicide. So there is that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you next Sunday's reading. Who am I going to do next Sunday? I really should plan this more. Next Sunday, I'm going to read the palms of Amy Winehouse. I will give it a go anyway. Hopefully we'll have a bit more clarity. So, I'll see you next Sunday, and thanks for watching, and please subscribe.